Good morning. Okay, so this next video is about marking the text of your script for vocal and visual delivery. That visual delivery includes your blocking plan. So here we go.
All right, good morning. So here we go. We are going to be marking the text of the script for vocal and visual delivery today. So we just created a set design for our monologue, and that was important because without knowing what the set looks like, I don't really know what kind of spaces I have to move around in. And so if I'm trying to plan for movement, but I don't know what the furniture is or where it's going to be, I don't know how much space I have, it's kind of hard to plan for movement, right? You can plan some gesturing and stuff, but as far as like actual movement, not so much. So, quick recap, the ground plan that we've designed or that I've designed for this example monologue looks kind of, oh my God, the thing's in my way, I can't draw. Okay, kind of like this, right? So here's my stage, ground plan from above view, right? There's a balcony. My character's on the balcony, so I'm going to have limited movement. That's kind of nice because, you know, it means that it's a little bit easier to plan for maybe. So there's my wall of flats and my balcony, and then I've got some trees over here and a tree here and a wishing well here, okay? All right, so that's my basic ground plan. So I know that I'm gonna be on this balcony the whole time pretty much, unless my character gets to climb over, but really that doesn't traditionally happen. And in the original, they just didn't even touch it all. He was down here, she was up here, so it is what it is. So my first thing that I'm gonna do, there are a couple different ways you can do blocking. You can actually draw blocking on a drawing of the set like this. And I may do that in just a minute. I'm gonna pull out my other ground plan. I think it'll give me a little bit more room. Maybe not. So you can draw it on the actual thing here, or you can write notes on the text itself. And I'm going to be doing both so I can show you both, and then really honestly, whichever one you like better, you can do, whichever one you think is going to work better for you. All right, so it starts out, thou knowest the mask of a knight is on my face. The first thing I need to consider is where, this doesn't happen in a cipher. It's not, or that's the wrong word, I think, siphon, whatever, vacuum. It doesn't happen outside. I'm performing it outside the context of the play, but it happens within the context of the play. So there's stuff that's happened right before this line, and there's stuff that's going to happen right afterward. So I need to think about that when I'm starting to plan for my blocking. So right before this, she has just discovered that Romeo's out there, and they've had a little bit of a conversation where she's like, oh my God, you do realize my family's going to kill you if they find you here. Like, what the heck, blah, 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 right? And then he just reassured her with, he doesn't, and, oh God, what is the line? But basically he says, like, I don't really care, and honestly, if I were to find out that you loved me, that would be enough, and I wouldn't be worried about, what harm they might bring to me. So, super sweet. And then she launches into this because she just had that moment where she realizes, oh my gosh, I said all of these things about how I love him and whatnot, and he heard all of that. So that's where this is coming from. So there might be a long pause actually, and I think that's what I would like. I would like to have a little pause before I start speaking. So I would give my introduction, and then I would pause, maybe touch face, or some other gesture that indicates embarrassment. And when you're thinking about, we're gonna go through and do visual first. When you're thinking about visual delivery, really honestly what my process is I just imagine. I try to see me or somebody else performing this scene, and I've seen so many different versions of Romeo and Juliet. Honestly, it's hard not to see some of my favorite Juliets performing this scene when I try to close my eyes and envision it, but I still have to try because I got to bring my Juliet to this, right? So I have to try to imagine what would this look like if someone were performing it in front of me. What do I imagine she would do? What do I imagine she would sound like? What do I imagine she would look like? And then that's what I use, All right. Thou knowest the mask of night is on my face, else would have made in blush but paint my cheek for that which thou hast heard me speak tonight. So for this, I've got to figure out where she is on the balcony to start off. They've been talking. He's right down here. So she's probably right at the edge of the, so if Romeo's here, I'm gonna draw him in. Romeo, he gets an R. Then Juliet's up here, she gets a J. Those X's indicate people. All right. I should probably just use their letters actually, because then I could use the X's for indicating cross, but that's okay. All right, so Juliet's on the balcony, Romeo's here. So sorry, what happened just there in my mind was I was imagining what would it look like if right before she started this monologue, she turned away from him. And I can't have her turn full back because she's got to speak and we got to be able to hear her. But what if she just turned to the side? All right. So maybe right before this indicate of embarrassment and then turn stage right away from Romeo before you begin speaking. So the first part of this monologue is actually spoken out that way, away from where he is right down here. Okay? Thou knowest the mask of night is on my face, else would a maiden blush bepaint my cheek for that which thou hast heard me speak tonight. Fain would I dwell on form, fain deny what I have spoke, but farewell compliment. Farewell compliment is a turning, so that's where she's going to turn. Turn back. Oh, no, it's not, sorry. But farewell compliment, she's going to throw her hands up there. I want to throw my hands up there. Kind of like, whatever. It's already ruined now. All right. Next line, dost thou love me? Dost thou love me brings her back to Romeo. So that should go out on this side. Can you even see over there? Yes, if I move it over, you can. All right. So this is turn to Romeo. And honestly, cross to the edge of the balcony. This X outside of the drawing indicates crossing, right? Okay, cross to down left edge of balcony. All right, to right in front of Romeo. Dost thou love me? I know thou wilt say aye, and I will take thy word, yet if thou swearest, thou may prove false. At lovers' perjuries, they say Jove laughs. Now, here's the thing. With movement, there's got to be a balance. You don't want to be bebopping all over the place because that's distracting, right? So when you're choosing movement, you want to make it motivated and purposeful. So this point where she says, dost thou love me? She's asking, do you love me? Do you really love me though? Right? And so that it makes sense for her to be motivated to turn back and look him in the face, because if you look him in the face when you ask him that question, they can't lie that well. I mean, they can, they can try, but like, you're going to have a better idea. If you're not watching them and watching their face and watching their reactions when they answer that question, and that's a heavy question, right? Then you're not going to know. So it makes sense logically for most people and for emotional states and for like psychology for her to turn around at that point. Cool? All right. I know thou wilt say aye, and I will take thy word, yet if thou swearest, thou mayest prove false. At lovers' perjuries, they say Jove laughs. So she's talking about God. There, Jove is God, right? I almost want her to move again at that point because it is kind of a different thought and it's not focused on Romeo specifically. However, I don't want her to move too much. And so I'm thinking maybe just a look up at the fly space really, but look up at the sky, we'll say for now. Oh, gentle Romeo, and then gentle Romeo brings it back. So I'm thinking at lovers' perjuries maybe is where that look up to the sky. Sorry, my arrows are everywhere. Another reason why you should do this in pencil. I don't know why I'm doing it in pen, but whatever. It's because that's what I had. So she looks up to the sky at lovers' perjuries. They say Jove laughs. And then back to Romeo. Look back to R and lean in this time. I'm going to have her lean over that balcony a little bit. Make sure those railings are strong. If thou dost love, pronounce it faithfully. Or if thou thinks, okay, so here's another change, right? Or if thou thinkst I'm too quickly won. So if you think that I am falling in love too quickly, I will pretend like I'm not in love with you so that you will pursue me, right? So for this, stand back straight again. Oh, that'll be cute. Straight again. And kind of like mock it or act it out a little bit. Kind of mockingly act out that whole, I'll frown and be perverse and say thee nay, so that will woo. But else, not for the world. In truth, fair Montague, I am too fond. Okay, so this is step forward to the very edge of the balcony. Because I think that makes sense, right? Motivation, it makes sense for her. I am too fond. She's getting very, very straightforward and clear with him right there. And so I think it makes sense to take that step forward. It's a leap of faith, you know, that she's professing her love. I am too fond. I am desperately in love with you. Step forward to railing, all the way up against that railing now. And therefore thou mayest think my behavior light. But trust me, gentlemen, I'll prove more true than those that have more coin to be strange. I should have been more strange, I must confess. But that thou overheardst ere I was where my true love's passion, right? So that might be all the edge of the balcony, hands on the railing, right? Therefore, pardon me, and this is where she leans down again. Or maybe, oh, you know what, actually, it might be really great to have a level change here. So maybe squats down. And then face between, what are those things called? Those the rungs? I don't know, I'm gonna call them rungs. Between the rungs of the balcony, so those posts. She's just gonna stick her face through them. Hope we'll make sure that there's enough space for her head, right? Yay. And not impute this yielding to light love, which the dark night hath so discovered. And maybe even reach out to him. That might be a little bit much. That might be a little too much. Taking it too far? Yes, too far. Okay. All right. So a lot of that, and this is why these notes become really important. You notice for this particular monologue, there's not a whole lot of crossing back and forth, moving around on the balcony. Like we've added a little bit, right? So I might be able to have like an arrow here if I was drawing it to show her turning away and then turning back, right? So I might use arrows to indicate that. If I were doing Romeo's blocking and he were moving about a fair amount during this, maybe I have him cross upright. Oops. Upright. I can draw. Okay. That is down right. I'm sorry, guys. It's early. Cross down right at a certain point and stand over here. Maybe at another point at another line, and I would use notes. I would actually write a little bit of the line here or a word that was a clue from the line to tell me when that happens, right? That he crosses there and stands here. Maybe at another point he crosses to the wishing well, so that would be a cross. This is up actually at this point, upright to wishing well, right? And you can use letters and abbreviations and all kinds of things to indicate what it is you're actually drawing and saying and what that's supposed to communicate. So if you're drawing blocking and you have a lot of major movements, it would make sense to draw it. And you would use a code kind of like this, where you have arrows and X's to indicate the people with letters for their names, right? So you know who's who. And then you can use the arrows to show where they're going and where they stop approximately. And use codes like X for cross, UR for upright, right? To wishing well, WW for wishing well, right? You can use stuff like that to indicate it if you're doing a drawing. And there's a lot of movement. If there's not a lot of movement and most of your blocking and visual delivery is more about gesturing or about the level, the height of you, whether you're standing or sitting or stuff like that, then notes on your actual script might make more sense, right? And those can be a little bit more clear. But that's basically what you're doing for visual delivery. And all I'm expecting to see is just notes on your script or a drawing with your blocking plan that indicates when and where you're going to move and how you're going to use that movement. All right, so the last piece we're going to be considering is vocal delivery. And so similar to visual delivery, all I'm looking for is notes on your script, on your monologue, for visual delivery specifically. I'm doing it on a separate sheet of paper just for clarity's sake, so it doesn't get too gummy and weird and crazy. Here's that visual delivery notes, right? If I were doing this for real, I would do them all on the same page because I don't want to look at 6 different copies of the monologue to try to figure out what the heck I'm supposed to be doing, okay? However, again, for clarity's sake, I'm going to do the vocal delivery, on a different piece of paper so that it's easier to see. All right, but you should do it all on the same one. So on your monologue text that you turn in, I should see notes for visual delivery and for vocal delivery. All right. Now, when it comes to vocal delivery, again, we're looking at using the 4 variable elements of voice, right? And those variable elements of voice, again, are, these are the things that I can control. And apparently my handwriting is not one of them, but that's okay because it's not a variable element of voice, so whatever. I can control my volume, my projection, right? How loud or soft I am. I can control my pace, how fast or slowly I speak things and where there are pauses. I can control, oh, and that's also duration is another word you can use for that, right? Because that refers to like how long a sound is held out or how long a pause is held out, right? I can control my inflection, and that refers to pitch, how high or low the sounds of my voice are going. Why do I always, oh, there we go. And I can control my articulation. And that is most important for clarity's sake because that is the clear and distinct pronunciation of words, right? So when I'm going through and marking for vocal delivery, same basic process. I want to imagine how would I hear this spoken. Now, because I'm dealing with Shakespeare, and if you are dealing with Shakespeare, you may want, especially since these are words that we're not familiar with, and although we've taken the time already to figure out what's being said, and we know what's being said, and we're going to use that as well to help us create meaning with our sounds, it could be helpful to go watch somebody else perform this. And I would look for a couple different ones so you're not like stuck on one and feeling like you have to do it exactly the same way as that person. I would watch a couple different versions of somebody performing your monologue and use that as a bit of a guide, you know, to start off. Pay attention to how they deliver it. What's the emotion, right? And then the next thing we do is we got to come through, and I would chunk it first, right? I would go through and I would decide, and honestly, I've already done that, right? If I did took my time to study this monologue and figure out what it's saying, and since I've done that, I've already got chunks for this. I'm going to use the same chunks for my vocal delivery because that makes sense. So I have a line under compliment. I have a line under faithfully, and I divided these up before based on the content, on them all basically having the same ideas or being part of the same idea together, okay? So these, I'm dividing this into chunks. We call them chunks. We can also call them, and what we more commonly call them in the theater world is beats, because this is all kind of one mood. This is all kind of one mood or feeling. This is all kind of one mood or feeling, and this is all kind of one mood or feeling, with one exception. Nope, actually it's pretty good. Yep, nope, that's all good. All right, so then the next thing that I'm going to do is go through and try to determine, okay, what is a basic word for the feeling in each of these sets of lines, all right? So what is she feeling overall most strongly in this first set? Thou knowest the mask of night is on my face, else would I maiden blush but paint my cheek. For that which thou hast heard me speak tonight, fain would I dwell on form, fain deny what I have spoke, but fair will compliment. So basically here, she is saying, if it weren't nighttime, you would see me blushing. So that one's pretty easy. She feels embarrassed. That is the predominant emotion up there, right? Oh my God, he heard what I said about any other part belonging to a man. Okay. Dost thou love me? I know thou wilt say aye, and I will take thy word, and yet if thou swearest, thou may prove false. At lovers' perjuries, they say Jove laughs. O gentle Romeo, if thou dost love, pronounce it faithfully. She's worried about his faithfulness, so I would say maybe insecure. Nervous, insecure, there's a lot of words that you could use. I'm going to use insecure, right? That's the feeling. Or if thou think'st I'm too quickly won, I'll frown and be perverse and say thee nay, so thou wilt woo, but else not for the world. So here she's like, oh, okay. Or if you think that I've fallen in love too quickly, I'll pretend like I'm not, so you'll pursue me. That's almost playful in my mind. It's almost kind of like she's joking, you know, and hoping like this is really unnecessary, and I know it's unnecessary, and you know it's unnecessary, but I'm going to say it anyway. Because like I'm kind of stuck between this whole the proper way to do things and the fact that we've just already totally messed that up anyway, so what the heck. In truth, fair Montague, and then here she gets real sincere, right? In truth, fair Montague, I am too fond, and therefore thou mayest think my behavior light, but trust me, gentlemen, I'll prove more true. She's promising things, right? Than those that have more coin to be strange. I don't like that. I'm sorry. This is cunning in like every version I've ever read except this one, and bleh. So cunning to be strange. I should have been more strange, I must confess, but that thou overheardst arrow is where my true love's passion. Therefore pardon me. All right, so this is, sincere is really honestly it's the only word that's coming to mind right now, but it's almost more than, well, honesty is sincerity, so that's the same thing. But it's like, it's that moment where she's like giving up all playing, and it's straight and it's in his face, and it's like, boom, right? Here's what's up. Here's what's up. She gets sincere in that last part. Okay, so now I have a general feeling, and that general feeling is going to help guide how I say this. Now I just get to play with it, right? I know I need to sound embarrassed, and I'm going to try to use projection, pace, duration, inflection, articulation. If I'm embarrassed, do I speak loudly or softly? Usually, if I'm feeling embarrassed, I'm going to talk kind of on the quieter side. So this might start off, again, I have to be able to project so I can be heard on stage, but it might start off with a tone that's a little bit quieter and a little bit demasked or demure, or kind of, trying to hide a little bit because she's uncomfortable. Pace and duration might be a little bit slow and halting because I'm embarrassed and I don't feel confident, right? Inflection and pitch is going to vary based on each line. I'm sorry, I was like, what can I say generally about that? I mean, it like every sentence gets a change in inflection and in pitch. Articulation, I do want it to be clear. And again, with articulation, we get some freedom. But for the most part, if you're on stage, you have to be heard and understood. So you have to be clear in your speech. You have to keep working for that really strong articulation. So let's give this a try. Let's see how it sounds. Let's try it one way. So embarrassed, kind of softer, slow and halting. Thou knowest the mask of night is on my face. Else would a maiden blush bepaint my cheek for that which thou hast heard me speak tonight. Fain would I dwell on form. Fain deny what I have spoke, but farewell compliment. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I mean, I think it definitely needs some work still, but I think that the duration of that, I like how it's, stopping. I am paying attention to sentences. Please notice that, especially with Shakespeare, right? When you are speaking a line, Shakespeare wrote in verse, so everything's like poetry. It's divided up like poetry, but the sentences are not at line breaks necessarily, right? Else would a maiden blush bepaint my cheek for that which thou hast heard. That is all one sentence. So it needs to be said as though it's all one sentence. It should not be broken up. Blush bepaint my cheek for that which thou hast heard me speak tonight. That doesn't make sense, right? So put it together. Always keep it in sentences. So if I want to give a slightly extra long pause, then, and where one of the places that I did that, else would a maiden blush bepaint my cheek for that which thou hast heard me speak tonight. There's a spot where I might pause. So I can use this little slash line to indicate that that's a spot I'm going to take a break. I'm going to pause for a second, maybe take a breath, maybe look around, maybe roll my eyes, but I'm going to do something, right, other than just continue on into the next line right away. Fain would I dwell on form. Fain deny what I have spoke, right? And so I took an extra pause there too. So I'm going to do a half slash, and that is not in any like professional like text marking book anywhere, I don't think. But that's what I'm using, because if a full slash is a full stop, a half slash would be a half stop, right? So there we go. Fain deny what I have spoke, but farewell compliment. So here's another one. I might pause there. All right. So those slashes help indicate pauses for me of where I am going to stop for a second. But farewell compliment. Now for this line, I do want it to be kind of like it's almost like side out. Because it's oh well, give up on it, right? Side out, or yeah, side out. That's the best way I can explain it right now. So I'm going to put a note for myself right there. All right, so that basically is the idea. I don't want to take up too much time. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but that's what you're wanting to do, and that's what I'm expecting to see. I'm expecting to see I might have a couple other words around here to explain. Maybe this, I might say something or make a note for myself that this should be quieter, reserved, and it is coming after a long pause, right? Remember, I started this piece with a pause. Oh, I should put that up here. All right, so start with pause, turn away. Oh, that's a visual delivery. Whatever. It helps set up the vocal, so we're good. You really can't do them without considering the other. All right, so again, if you have any questions, come see me on Adsby or text or call or whatever. But that is what I'm expecting, what I'm looking for from you for visual delivery.